Now, hopefully you'll be noticing an improvement in quality of our camera. It's don't know if I can get the lighting any better, but it's basically a lot better than it was. I'm going to go straight in to this dinosaur. I'll start with folding my bird base with the white side facing up. One sec. Let's get rid of that. With the white side facing up, I'm going to fold in half along this diagonal. Line those corners up. Oh, sorry. Do you know what? I need to catch myself. I'm actually going to fold the diagonal with the color side facing up. It happens. And I will go straight ahead, rotate that 90 degrees. Hopefully everyone is able to get a much better view this time. Okay, I'll then turn that over. To book fold, i.e. fold it in half in a square way, like that, in both directions. This is, of course, the preliminary base. If I now bring all these points together on the corner, I have made my preliminary base. Okay. Sound. So shall I continue? I can see people are still working away. All good? Okay. So I'm now going to make some guide creases to the petal fold part. That's a point. I don't know if I named the folds that we were doing last time, so I'm going to do a bit better at naming things as we go this time. But first we fold this edge into the center crease, like that. And the same with this opposite edge, so that we've got a kite shape. I'm now going to fold the whole of this top point down along this edge, really. And then when I unfold that, I have all these guide creases for the next fold. So taking just the top layer, when I open this up, there is a name for this kind of fold, and it's called a petal fold, something that comes up obviously in lots of plants and flowers. And what I'm doing is just reversing the top layer of this, which has this valley fold there. When I open this up, I'm going to reverse those valley folds to mountains and bring these edges, all of the edges, into the center, making sure that the folds are reversed all the way up before I kind of finalize that by pressing hard along all the folds. There we go. I just like to pinch around all the points and all the folds as I go quite often. Sometimes if you just see me hands moving around doing things like that, that's mostly what I'm going to be doing. But yeah, if we're all at that point, shall I continue? Okay. So yeah, turning over and repeating those steps on this square face. I just take this corner into the center. Oh gosh, for some reason I do really messy work when I'm narrating as I go. But there we go. I'll take this down again. Going to unfold and do that petal fold one more time. So there we have our bird base with that double petal fold accomplished. the next part. I think it doesn't matter which side I go with. I'm going to start with the last one that I folded. I'm going to bring this point down and then fold the whole thing in half. So folding along that central crease so that all these points are hidden inside. You can see, looking at it from underneath, this is the end with all the legs and stuff, and this end is going to end up being the head. I think I will orient it that way from now. So this was the part with the three ends, and this is the part with the one tip. So the next fold is the outside reverse fold, which brings this tip, this edge in line with the central crease, and this tip's going to be up here somewhere, and that will of course be the head. Now, one way to do this really nice and accurately is you can give yourself a guide crease, even though this kind of this chunk in the middle is kind of in the way, right? So you can't like fold the whole thing up to give yourself a guide crease. But if you open this up, you can essentially give yourself a really good guide like that. And then by opening that back out and doing it in the other direction, so I've now just placed those creases exactly where they need to be. And then when I fold this back up, it's just going to fold it. It just falls into place. You see what I mean? And that's become that outside reverse fold. And that's the way to do it really nice and accurately. Wherever you can give yourself guide creases, it's a good idea to do it if you can be bothered, but sometimes you can just forego them completely if you want. Yeah. So yeah, if we're all there, I can't remember what order I did things in the actual sheets that I gave you. That's one problem. I don't have that one right in front of me, but I'm going to go straight ahead and fold the head here. So I'll start off by giving myself this. By the way, how's the image for everyone? The nice thing that I've got with this camera is I can actually zoom in a lot more if needed. So I mean, it's luxury, isn't it? But I'll just have it about there. So I'm now going to do this this head. I'll give it a guide crease by folding the whole flap like that. So that's roughly where I want my head to be. I'll open that back out and then open out this whole, oh, hold on. I feel like I'm a bit too close. This whole, I fold by just opening this out and just pushing that over like that before closing it back up again. That is the fold that I want to reverse, the opposite side. So now that's a nice outside reverse fold for the head. This model is all in an outside reverse fold, so I just thought it was a very nice way to practice those. And I'm just going to sink the nose there. I'll do that without creating a guide crease. I'm just going to, just by holding that, just fold the tip inside and close it back up. Sorry, I just took too much there. Hold on. Just going to fold the tip of that inside. There we go. Sorry, I feel like that's a bit out of focus. There we go. Squared off nicely. So for the leg, the first leg, it's this outside edge is going to fold down to the central crease here to meet that. And I'll do that on the other side as well. We have these three parts that we gave ourselves. There we go. So that's nice and symmetrical on both sides. And the next part is the foot. So in my notes, I basically broke this down into first a reverse fold that goes back, and then you take that and reverse it forward. Now, one way that you can just basically do this as you get more confident is I can essentially do that in one motion. Let me see if I can just show you what that looks like. I say that, I don't know if I've practiced this very much, to be honest with you, but sorry. If I know that I want my foot to end up in roughly this position, sorry, just opening this flap up, I can do the outside part of the reverse fold. Sorry, getting myself confused. Excuse me, Emo, for some reason I'm finding that really hard to get my own head around. But basically, I'll do this leg as I described it in the first place, and that will help me get back on track. We did this, didn't we? The inside, and then doing it back in that direction. Yeah, like that. Sorry, I've really confused myself there. I think it's because I'm trying to look at a bunch of different screens at once. When I do that on the other side, just going to try and show you how by opening up this flap, I can essentially cut that down into one motion. Not sure if you saw how that was possible. So just by taking this, putting it back, and then turning it inside out on itself, and then kind of closing that up, I can kind of just cut down on the time there. I don't know. That's kind of taking the ball reversed kind of technique to do that. To be honest, it's not the most even, but I think she'll stand more or less. So anyway, the last fold on here is the claws. And there we had the dino. So hopefully, to be honest, this is a really splay-footed dinosaur. She's not standing very nicely. But that was the simple dino. So those of you who were following along with that, was that too quick? That looks beautiful.
Oh, that's good.
That looks like quite a
Well
nice
done.
thick grade of paper. I think these models work nicer with thicker paper than they do with really thin paper. This is quite thin. I don't think I can get it to stand properly. It's a drunken dinosaur, but I just wanted to kind of go through that one quite quickly. It was really about this leg issue, but I could probably have stood to practice that a little bit better. But you've basically got one reverse fold inside of another, and sometimes in instructions and notes you'll see that described as a double reverse fold, and it will usually be to take something right round in quite a sharp angle like that. Anyway, so that is dino number one. So yeah, did anyone have anything they want to share about that, or any particular questions, or shall we go straight on with our frog? Oh yeah, one thing that I wanted to explain just before we go on, it's not necessarily something to follow along with, but one piece of terminology you see quite a lot in notes is a squash fold, and I just wanted to explain really carefully like what that is, because it comes up in the cat model quite a lot. So an alternative way to make a preliminary base that I learned as a kid, instead of doing all of the, folding it in half both ways, one way that I learned first was to simply fold in half like that, and then fold this in half again, and then squash fold the sides. And a squash fold is typically where you have one flap like that, and just by opening it out, putting a finger there and just, like the name suggests, just squashing it down, and then making those folds like that square. I've basically done my half of my preliminary base like that. if I turn that over and squash fold the other side. So squash fold is typically spreading out the sides of a flap as far as they'll go and just squashing the spine down or squashing it down in the middle to make it flat. And that's what that is. That's like the kind of kids way to do a preliminary base. I tend to go with the other method where you do all of the folds, because that way all of the folds that make up this base are already in the correct orientation. You don't have to reverse any of them or anything like that. It's the neater way and it's the more elegant way to do it. But squash folding is also like legitimate. Obviously, I can then take each of these and you can squash fold them that way, like that. That's another little squash fold that comes up quite often. So it's just a piece of terminology that will come up quite a bit. And I don't think I went into it last week to explain it. So I just wanted to go through that really quickly. So anyway, I'm going to go straight on with the frog. I listed this in the program notes as an anonymous model, but I found someone who claimed authorship anyway. So I don't know how traditional it is, but it was by a Japanese folder called Mari Ono in the version that I found. And I'm going to start folding with this blue piece of paper. The first stage is a book fold. So whether you do that side to side or away from you like that, we're just folding this in half, getting the corners together, pinch in the middle, and unfold. And then I'll do that again on the opposite axis. And the next stage of that is to take this outside edge to the center crease and fold that nice and sharply. And unfold. Oops, little speck of something there. The quality on the camera is so much that I can't bear to have like a speck of dirt on my paper. I'm really happy about that, honestly. Quite important to turn this over, because that way this valley fold needs to be a mountain fold when we come to do the next couple of stages. So we're now going to put some guide creases in straight across this square section. So by folding this corner up here to the center crease, a nice sharp valley fold like that. I'm going to unfold that and do the same thing with the opposite corner. And just make those creases as sharp as possible, really, because now if I just hold it in that kind of orientation, it's really easy to just bring these points together and squash this down. And what we've essentially got on the end here is a water bomb base. Hopefully nice and sharp with the angles. Not loving this. Are we all there? Excellent. So the next part is to, take this bottom edge and fold it up to the center. The whole mechanics of this little jumping frog are that it has a lot of creases, has a lot of layers, which are all pressed up against each other and struggling to unfold themselves, and that gives it the bounce that it needs to actually jump if we fold it right. So it gets really thick. Okay, so the next stage is to bring, I'm going to fold the sides into the center, but only on the bottom layer. So if I just bring this top flap like out of the way, then I can, And I can fold that side to the center there, underneath, and then it's going back down. See, that's one side done, and I'll do the same on the other side. Again, holding that flap, the top flap out of the way, underneath it, I'm just going to fold just the bottom layer, oops, into the middle, nice and sharply. So we end up with this little arrow shape, or like a house, as the kids all seem to say at the same time. And again, the next step is to fold this edge up again to meet the center crease. So now there's quite a few layers, and it gets hard to keep them all together and make it accurate. You just try and keep the layers as close together as you can and make it as accurate as you can. And just press really tightly through all those layers. It won't lie flat, basically, but that's okay. So yeah, my next step is to get these two corners of this layer that we've just folded up. I'm going to fold them down to the middle, and this is to make some guide creases for the next step. So I don't know if you can see, I'm just pressing really hard on all of those folds. And yeah, I can actually change the focus. It's amazing. Right. So the next step is the reason I've put this little toy model in this course really is to do this next step, because it's the kind of thing that comes up a lot in origami, where you'll see it'll just say release the layers beneath or pull paper out from inside to make the next step. And sometimes that's really opaque. You're like, what does that mean? It means that I'm going to have to open up all the folds that we just did in order to, I mean, not quite all of them, but if I open up this layer and then fold this part back, sorry, I'm going to do it on both sides at once. So by opening that up and then folding these parts back, what I've then got is that these flaps now come down into a point. There's a base layer here and two flaps on top. Now, does anyone need to see that again? Did you follow that okay? I can see some looks, they're just working through there, I think.
Maybe just repeat the last.
Yeah, I think I will. I'm going to try and utilize my zoom and see if I can just go in a bit closer and show you exactly what I did there. What a luxury. Wow. So going back to where I was, I'm using quite a small piece of paper here, to be fair, so I'm doing quite a small version. So we had these tight little layers all folded up, and we folded this down to make our guide. I can, by unfolding these layers and then folding that point back, I've brought out some of the paper from inside to now make these longer flaps here, see, which are going to become the bottom legs of our frog. How are you finding that? Excellent. Yeah, we should have our two little tails. Nice work. So all that remains is I'm going to make this fold here. Now the way to know where to do this next fold is the fold is going to lie along this flap, and when I finish it, because my paper is quite small, it's quite hard to see. I'm just basically taking that corner and turning it out so that the bottom of this little edge here is more or less parallel to the baseline underneath it. That's if it's lying flat, which it won't do once I let go. But the position should be like this. And just doing that the same thing with the other side to make it symmetrical. Now you can see a lot of my layers here aren't hanging together perfectly accurately. There's just too many of them to do that. It doesn't really impact from the effect of the model. I just want to have that little foot in line with the base edge beneath. I'll put that there like that maybe so you can see. And so that's the back legs of the frog. And the front legs, I'm going to do something very similar. Just taking this corner, folding it up here, so that this side is parallel to the side of the model there. There we go. That's one. And that's the other. Very nearly done. I mean, that's a passable little frog there, just like that. Sometimes we like to draw faces on or stick googly eyes or whatever, but we're not finished because we're going to make him jump. So the next step is something called a pleat. It's just like basically a crimp, two folds that go against each other, and we're going to put make the whole body of this frog into a big kind of Z. So by folding this in half, a valley fold through the center here, folding the whole thing in half. And now, even though there's tons of layers and it's very difficult to do properly, I'm going to fold it back on itself so that this edge is more or less in line with the back edge. So it takes quite a lot of force to get through all the layers, and it's pretty much impossible to do it perfectly accurately. But now that's where you get all your spring from, and he should jump. Ace. Right out of camera. And that's the finished frog. As I say, just a really fun one for kids, and my daughter did that and she was really pleased with it, and she's like 7. Stuck some googly eyes on it and the job was a good one. Boing. So what I want to ask you is, do your frogs jump? Ace. Nice one.
They all jump.
I mean, it's a simple enough little model, but it's a good way to show that maneuver where you open it up to bring something out and then close it back up again. That's very significant in the other model that we're going to do today, and it definitely comes up in a lot of origami. So looking at the time, yeah, I think we're pretty well on schedule to jump straight in on the main event, which is the Makoto cat, as I call it, to distinguish it from the other cat that I'm going to be doing in this course. So let me just get my paper sorted out. I think I'm going to do my cat in purple today. This is like it's fairly dark, but with the camera that I've got, I think it can work. Basically because the other papers that I've got that are lighter in color are also patterned, and I'd rather have a single surface. Oh yeah. Just looking for my other sheet of purple because we need 2. What a clown. Ah, there we go. Knew I had them. Okay, cool. So if we're ready, are we all ready to start and go straight in on the cat? Okay. Am I? That's the main question. Because yeah. Sorry, just having a bit of a rustle through my papers there. Okay, so we'll start with the front section of the cat. And it begins with the diagonal folds, starting with the white side or non-pattern side, the inside facing up. I'm going to fold along these diagonals as sharply and accurately as possible. Line up there, go to the center and pull out to the other corner. Going to unfold that, turn it 90 degrees and do the same thing. Okay. Then, as in so many other models, it's the book fold horizontally and vertically, again with the white side up and getting that lined up as perfectly as possible. Always worth taking the time to get those initial folds in the right place and sharp. Oops. Okay. So now I'm going to bring one of the outside edges, doesn't really matter which one, but I'm going to try and keep this oriented in the same way that I've got it in the notes that I gave you. So I'm going to take this edge to the center crease like that. And then the two adjacent sides also fold into the center. Is the quality keeping? I can see on one of my screens here, it looks a little bit pixelated, but on my main screen, the quality looks fine. So let me know. Saying a little bit, Holly.
Yeah, we've got some thumbs up. It's just it just dips out now and again, but it normally comes back. It looks like it's come back now. Thanks.
Okie doke. Yeah, and just if I need to go slower or give it a bit of time to catch up, just say the word. I'm just moving this around to get the best purchase on it, but that's now in the original orientation that we had before. And yeah, going to continue. I'll take these corners. It's this edge to the bottom edge. So this diagonal goes from the corner to where this crease comes in there, across that square section. I'll do that on both sides. Oops. And now we've got one of these steps. We're going to pull out the corners that are inside, and it's this inner flap, the sort of second layer, if you will, that's going to stay in the same place, and essentially bringing this corner out and folding like that. You see, so we started there. We made this guide crease by opening it up, taking this corner out, then along our guide crease, it's nice and straight. I'll just do that on the other side. Are you finding that following okay? Everyone happy? Cool. So opening it up, it's bringing out this paper from the inside, making that crease, and then closing it back up. And basically, if I want to make that fold like nice and sharp, I can kind of open it up to just press along the layer where it is before closing. And yeah, that's looking more or less as it should. So I'm now going to turn this over left to right, as in my notes, and fold it, the whole thing up in half along this central crease. Awesome. So for the next step, I'm folding along this central crease that's already there for us, nice and handy. I'm just going to fold this whole section out, and it says in the notes, squash fold the middle section. You'll see that we're pulling this out, and it just means push that flat. We've done a squash fold there. We're going to close it back up. Okay, I can do that one again in reverse. I've taken this out, squash the middle, close it back up, and that's 9 and 10 in the instructions. So if we're ready to proceed, here, this was a mistake that I made in my instructions. It says on step 11, fold edge to edge. That is correct, but it doesn't say to repeat that on the other side of the model, which you should do. So it's both of those edges that I'm folding. That is my bad. So that we end up with that kind of a shape. Nice. Quite happy with the way that's looking. So if we're ready to continue, it just says step 12 is inside reverse fold upwards. You can do this either with or without a guide crease. If you wanted to put a guide crease into it, you can just take all of these layers, fold that up like that, just valley fold through all the layers. With or without that, the idea is that we're going to put an inside reverse fold. So it's this spine, the closed edge there is going to come up to meet that part in the middle. We close it back up, and we've basically just reoriented the end by 90 degrees. Not too happy with the neatness of some of my folds, so I'm just giving it a little pinch around there. And yeah, are we happy with our inside reverse fold there? All good? Okay. The next thing is to fold edge to edge. It's this edge to the center. Sometimes called in notes, it'll say fold angle bisector, right? The bisector between this edge and that edge, exactly halfway along the angle. Just folding that flap in half. And I have once again neglected to say in the notes that we should do that also on the reverse side. I'm going to turn this over and do that. So if any of you were trying to do that and getting confused, that's because I messed it up. Sorry about that. So the next move is slightly tricky, and the thing to reference is the position that it shows in the next picture, because I want to do an inside reverse fold to bring this corner down here, but I want the angle between this edge and the edge beneath it to be 90 degrees. So I'm just going to kind of open this up a bit, make sure that the fold that I'm putting into it goes all the way to the corners of those flaps. And then before I make that fold, official, see, it wants to be a little bit higher than where I had it. Don't know if that's too useful to you. Sorry. I feel like I'm going out of focus a little bit there, but I get that in the right place by basically making it look like I want to make it look before opening it up to really push those folds home. So if that's not the most elegant description, but did you find that followable? So I've now wound up with this angle being 90 degrees here. We started up here, and there's no, because of all these layers being in the way, there's no real way to guide crease it. You just have to kind of get the point roughly where you want it, look at the finished position, think, yeah, that's going to be good enough, and then push the folds to make them sharp inside. So I'll leave that there. How are we feeling about that step? Looks pretty good, the one that I'm seeing there. Excellent. Okay, cool. It's like, it can be quite hard to describe how to do something like that, but oftentimes the only reference that you've really got is the next image, so you just have to go with that. Okay, so yeah, the next step is again maybe a little bit easier to show than to tell, but I'm going to be opening this up to pull out. If I open up my whole like neck section here, I'm going to pull out this corner and then close it back up. It means putting a new fold there, and these edges will be together, and I wind up with this squared off rectangular section. I'm going to do that on both sides, so you'll be able to see the same maneuver done. I just try and open it like that so that so you can see the light a bit better. That's the corner that I'm pulling out. And then when I close back up, I'll put a new fold in the top of that to make this square. How's that gone? Everyone good? I know I'm kind of looking in the wrong direction over here. I should really be addressing this camera, I think, but oops. Right. Is that making sense to the people there? Not quite. Okay.
Are we? Yeah.
I'm going to go back over it. So, can I? That's the question. Can I reverse this process? Hold on. I'm sure I can. Just give me a second. Yeah, there we go. So we had our squared off section here, right? If I just open this up, you can see that there are two layers here. These are the two corners. When it says pull out the inner corner, it's these corners that I'm talking about. So again, that's where our model is. If I open it up, I have these two edges. I'm going to put a finger in there and pull out that edge before closing the model up again. I'll just do that again. Starting here, opening up, liberating some of that paper from inside, and then closing again. Making sure that when I close it and put the fold in, these edges are in line.
Can we follow?
Excellent. Kieran and co. Sorry, it's a
Lizzie? Kieran
Yeah.
and Lizzie? Are you?
Oh, that's
Can you
right.
follow?
Awesome. So it's the same on the other side of the model. I'll just do that again, kind of slowly. It's pulling that corner out. I'd say these are the tricky parts of this model. This is like the shaping of the head. It's the hardest to explain. And yeah, there's the one more tricky part to go, so I won't like count our chickens just yet. But the next fold is relatively simple. I'm going to take sorry, I'll use this to point this out. The fold's going to be here, and this corner, it's this outside edge to the edge of this flap. So that's the bisector of that flap, like that. You see what I've done there? I'll do that on the other side as well. Something I actually remembered to put into the notes this time. Repeat behind. So we've got this kind of trapezoid shape going on there. Next, I'm just going to fold this whole flap downwards like that. So that's along the edge, the bottom edge. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So are we all at this stage? Cool. So the next part is the part that's the hardest to describe, and it might just be a case of watching me do it. Oh, one thing, this is where it might be useful to have something to poke, so a chopstick or something. I'm going to grab something real quick. Chopsticks are useful because they don't tend to be super sharp in the end, but it's quite useful to have something on this next stage to push upwards into the model. So, as I said in my notes, we're going to be pushing out and reversing the central crease. The central crease is this part between the ears. Okay, I'll just try and focus that a little bit better. There we go. The central crease is this part between the ears. And I'm going to be pushing it out at the bottom, at the nose, and reversing it like it says. But once you get up to the top section, just between the ears, that section needs to stay in, okay? So I'm going to get my little chopstick here. I'm just pushing this up into the model to reverse that crease as far up as it will comfortably go. I don't want to push too hard and break anything, but by pushing that nose back together, layers inside aren't exactly behaving themselves. I will go through this again in a second. What I've done is I've brought that flap from where it was. The flap now sticks up, and this part in the middle has these two folds. Now I could actually make that happen a little bit. Sorry, fiddling there a little bit. What I'd really like to see is between these ears have a little bit of a kind of diamond shape. That's a little bit elongated for my liking. I don't want to break it or anything like that.
Tony, could you please move the center of the frame a little bit more?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm kind of holding that too close to me to look down on it. And frankly, that head shape is not too bad, but I want it a little bit squarer. So that's why I'm fiddling. I'm just trying to get my chopstick up in there, right, to push that up. But I think I'm going to leave it at that. But you want to essentially get this point here could do with being a little bit further up on my model. But if it's looking like that, that's not too bad. So how did people go with that? You're looking faintly miffed, Kieran. That looks all right. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was saying it just looks a wee bit flat. compared to yours.
Has Tony's main cam just gone? No,
Oh,
it's me.
Can you see it now, Rachel? Ah, Tony's dropped out.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
We can't hear him.
I hope that wasn't me, but I'm sure he'll drop back in. Tony, if you can hear us, which I'm not sure if you can through the
I
Origami.
don't think he can. Do you have his number?
Yes, I will. I'm sure he's going to figure this out any moment. We'll get him back online. He's absorbed in the cat.
Yes, he is. Can we all keep up? Other than Tony has dropped out. Are we all good?
Yeah, sorry about that. He's just trying to reconnect. Yeah. Should we have a look at people's models again? They were looking really good. I was trying to spotlight them so that I'm going to remove Tony's just for the mo. I can get yours as well, Sarah.
Oh, nice.
So nice. Lovely.
Well done, everyone. That was a bit tricky then. Very good.
Are you making one as well, Rachel?
No, I'm not. I'm
No.
just trying to observe everyone, see if everyone can keep up.
Ah, here's Tony. Here we go. Sorry about that, everyone. We'll be right back with him. It's just flicked off again as he rejoined. So let me just try and get hold of him. Sorry about this.
Or we could suggest maybe at the time, for the time being, he can just
yeah. I'll ask to unmute on the Origami cam, and we'll see if he can continue through the portal instead of us. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me at all?
Yes, Tony, we can.
Right, I can't hear anyone. That's my problem. One second.
Okay, because it's through the camera, it's not connected to an audio.
Hi, there we go. So
can you hear us all right?
I don't know what's going on there. For some reason, my little portal device here has just kicked me out of the meeting, and I just rejoined and it didn't work again. So
no worries, Tony. I reckon let's carry on with your hands as if you were at like an art attack sort of moment.
As long as you can hear me, basically,
we can hear you. Yes. Yeah. If you're happy to do some gestural hand gestures, and I'll do my best to let you know about the focus and everything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try and rejoin it later, but we've got a lot to get through, so it's better to just continue, I suppose. As long as you can hear me okay.
Yeah, sounds good for us.
Okay, cool. So we got up to here, we've basically got our little cat head, and we're going to be doing the front legs of the cat. The next stage is to fold this edge to, it's this edge going to fold into this edge here. Carefully like that. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Oops. I'll just get the edges lined up nicely, and then I'll sort of press along the spine of the crease. Again, just picking that up to pinch, 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 pinch along all of these folds. And there we go.
How are we doing?
Yeah.
Thumbs up, Sarah?
Sorry about that little hiatus. It was really confusing. I suddenly realized I've been prattling on for ages and no one could hear me. So this wouldn't happen if we were all in the same room. Oh, are we ready to continue?
Are we ready? Continue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the next fold, it goes from this point right up to this point, and it's basically folding the angle bisector, but instead of folding it this way, I'm going to fold it inside. If you want to, you can do a guide crease. I'll do it on this leg because it's not a bad practice. So it's edge to edge, you see. Oh no, sorry, it's not edge to edge. Ignore me. Yeah, the fold is not between these two corners, it's edge to edge, it's the bisector. And that wants to go, that's my guide crease. I'll then fold it inside the model. Gosh, it's really easy to get confused talking about these models. I must have practiced this loads of times and still getting things wrong. Do apologize. So that's the one side done. I'm going to turn my model over and do the same thing. I won't bother doing a guide crease for this one. I'll just turn it over, fold that edge to meet the other one. That's the inside of my model there. And then basically close it up. Check that they look the same. Just give it a pinch along all of those folds. So yeah. Like so.
How are we doing?
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah.
So yeah.
Good. I think
So
we are all there.
it's a little inside reverse fold just to make this foot. I'll kind of guide crease it just so we can see where we want it to end up. But you want this to end up so that the bottom of the foot is kind of parallel with the floor, you know? Well, it's, yeah, parallel to the top edge, whatever you want to say. It wants to be flat on the floor. So that's my guide. I just do this inside reverse by opening this up like that, and then closing it. I've got my little foot facing forward there, and I'm going to square that off by just opening that. Technically it's an inside reverse fold. I'll call it a push. We're just going to push the tip inside. It's a little bit long, that foot for the caterpillar. There we go. Just going to push the tip inside like that. I'll turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. Oops. It means, yeah, like that. Once you've done one side, it's quite easy to reference the folds you've already made. Like that, I can see where those want to be so that it's going to be the same on the other side. Because if I want it to stand stably, I want them to be more or less in the same place. I'll just push the tip inside on that last pour there. And that is the front part of my cat. So I know that Sarah's had a go at folding this already, and I'm curious to see if she's happier with the guided fold version. But yeah, if we're, oh, sorry, there's one part left. I've missed out the last part. It's just rounding off these shoulders. This corner just wants to go inside the model. Just gives it a little bit more shape. So I'm just going to fold the tip inside and pinch that, and then make that the same on both sides. That's the very last step. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So that's my head and shoulders.
How are we doing, Kieran and Sarah? Well done.
Okay.
Do we need to repeat any of the step here?
Yeah, I feel like maybe that I haven't succeeded in fully explaining that weird head push out section. But again, it's something that if you return to, you're likely it'll make more sense the second time around. Do you know what I'm saying? This is quite a common theme in origami that you nail it on the second or third fold, and we're doing our best to nail it on the first one, but don't feel bad if it's not perfect, is what I want to say.
Okay.
Because the mechanics of it sometimes just take a while to, you can have like a flash and you go, oh, of course, they're just obvious, but you don't see it until you've done it a couple of times. People look quite like they're concentrating really hard. I don't know whether I should move on and go straight into the back.
Yeah, let me ask. Yeah.
That looks really good to me. Nice work. Hey, 2 thumbs fresh. Excellent. I'll put him to the side here, next to my dragon.
Well done.
This is my dragon, by the way. My dragon friend. This was me testing the focus on on this camera, and I'm really pleased to see that you can see every horrendous detail. Anyway, I say mine. It's not my design. I wish it was. So anyway, pulling back out. To go straight on with the next part of the cat, the back section, we start again with these diagonals, folding this in half along both diagonals. I'm assuming here that everyone's ready to go, so let me know if not. Okay.
Yeah, we are ready.
Awesome. So the start of the model is very similar to the front section, in that the first 2 steps are exactly the same. We're going to do the square, folding it in half square ways, horizontally and vertically, otherwise known as a book fold. And unfold. But now we're going to turn the page over and do something called a blintz fold, which is where you take all the corners into the center of the model to line up as squarely as possible. That's why we've got all of these guide creases there, so that we can make sure the angles are nice and neat. So I'll take in one corner. Sometimes I like to do the opposite corner next, but if you want to work your way around, it doesn't really matter. Just want to make sure that all of these guide creases line up. So that you've basically got another square that's just half the size. So following a little envelope. Okay, so that's going to look like that. And then I'm going to unfold it and turn it back over. Give a second to catch up. So if we're ready to continue, I've got it's the outside edges to the center. And now I think I'll put it in this kind of orientation. I'm going to fold. The fold is going to be from this point to this point, outside edge to the center again at both ends of the model. Get even more light on there. I just like to turn that around to do that, because for some reason I just find it easier to fold away from me. But whichever way is easiest, doesn't make a difference as long as it winds up being pretty precise. Okay. Now, we already have some guide creases here for the next move. I'm going to fold all of those corners to that outer edge. So that's one side, and that's the other. And just like we did with the first model, except this time we're doing it at both ends, essentially, I'm going to be opening up these layers to pull out this paper before closing the layer back up. Oops. Before closing that layer back up to make this flap. Okay, I'll do it on.
Could you please move to the left a little bit?
Move everything to the left a bit, like that. Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, just holding that flat like that. You can see that that's how we've started. We're opening this up. Oops. Opening the whole thing up and bringing out the corner that was inside. Oops. Sorry, it's getting a bit flustered. Bringing out the corner that was inside before closing it back up. And then I've wound up with these 4 flaps. I push that a little bit flatter. Let me know if anyone's having trouble following there.
How are we all doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the right shape. Cool.
Sarah, are you okay? Can you follow? Good.
So, okay. Okay, so I'm going to turn the whole thing over and fold it up in half. And you'll start to see that. That wasn't the neatest of folds, honestly. You start to see that it's starting to resemble our front half. And we're going to do more of these kind of squash folds. So, sorry, I'm going to wind up with that orientation. I'll start with this corner, this top flap. I'm going to fold across to the other side and squash the center in the middle before closing that back up again. There we go. And then if I just flip the model over, I'm going to do the same thing again. So folding this across, keeping the bottom layer down, and then that middle section just necessarily will have to squash, and then before I close it back up. So inside,
Tony?
Yeah, hi.
Do you mind if I just interrupt and just ask if you could refocus the lens? Just because we've got a bit of pixelation, so I just want to check if it's the internet connection or.
that's as sharp as I can get that, I think.
Okay, let's give that a go. If anyone's having any problems with focus, that looks good for now. Oh yes,
I couldn't follow that, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
That's okay. I'm gonna go back with both of those things then. We had our corners. Sorry, we had our corners like that. I
And
turned the whole.
which end is this?
That's you're holding that up. You're holding the backside up to me, essentially. So.
Oh, hold on.
We had the bit where we.
Can you flip yours to the other side again?
Yeah, sure. So that's what it looks like on the one side. It's like this sort of square.
We've only got one flap on one side.
Ah.
Yeah, it's
okay.
like it's smooth here, but we've got the bit
Yeah,
here.
sure. It looks right on one side and not on the other. Let's just go back. That's okay.
No, I've just corrected that now.
Let's take it back. So.
Oh, is it supposed to be like that?
It's like all four of these flaps.
Like that?
Kind of harder for me to go backwards with it than it was.
Yeah. We've got it. I think we've got it.
Yeah, I thought. That right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you should have. If I turn it over, you should have these four things poking out from there.
Yeah.
So okay, no worries. So then, if I then fold this in half by folding this downwards, I've got this this nice kind of shape there, and I'll start by folding one side over, and the middle section needs to necessarily squash down like that, and I'll close it up. In my notes, I flipped it over and did the same thing, but you can just simply do the same thing on the other side without flipping it. Essentially just making both sides of this model the same. So you wind up with this shape with a long edge here and a short edge here, and if I've open it up, you can see that these have come together in the middle, these corners. Are we all there?
How are we doing?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess this is probably the trickiest move in the next minute. So the fold that I'm going to put up in the next bit, it only goes as far as the center crease. It only goes to here, basically. I'll just show you this quite slowly. I'm going to take this bottom edge, including, it's basically sort of two layers, as it were, two spines. I'm going to fold this bottom edge all the way up to the top. And it means that I've got to squash the section in the middle, and it becomes this triangular shape. There's the crease that I'm putting in that runs to the center. It sort of creases up a bit past the center, but I'm not putting any pressure there. I don't want to force that fold down there. The most important thing here is that this triangle is, nice and even. And that's what it looks like. It doesn't lie flat. This whole edge is poking up towards me. But the important thing here is that this triangle is, even and yeah, like so. So let me see how how we're getting on with that before I continue. Looks pretty good, okay? Looks pretty good. Are you with us, Sarah? Is that a yes?
Do you want?
She's saying no.
Sarah, do we need to repeat this step?
Yeah. I can show you that again.
We can't.
Yeah. Do you unmute Sarah, maybe?
Yeah, no. Can you do it again?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we started here, and that's the shape from beneath. I can see that I've got these two sections like that middle. I'm taking this bottom edge up here, sort of, I'm keeping the layers together here. If I pinch that and take them both right up to meet the top edge, the section in the middle needs to squash into a triangle. See? And if I then squash those folds down and then reinforce that crease, this is the section that's flat. Yeah, you're with us. Awesome. And the next part is essentially, we're going to just be closing this up, but we can't just close it up because there's all these things in the way, right? So there's going to be a valley fold to do here, like that. And so I'm going to basically bring the center parts together first before squashing inside. I wish there was a better way of explaining that. When I open that up again, you'll see that I've put a mountain fold in here. It is exactly in the place that it's shown in the notes, but it's kind of hard to see because it all goes on inside the model. So basically, I brought down that inner section first to close up the whole model. And yeah, both those sides should be more or less the same. I'm feeling slightly nervous. Are we following? How are you doing with that? That's the part that's hardest to, yeah, so this model, it's not completely symmetrical on all planes on the inside, but essentially it's looking like that. So, okay, next part is relatively easy. I'll do a guide crease first so we can see where the fold's going to be. But here's this crease that's already there, a little bit to this side. We're going to bring this point straight back along that line. Okay, I'll open that back up and make that into an inside reverse. Oh, sorry, got a finger there. Just by opening that up, reversing those folds, I've just squared that off, see? And that's a relatively simple part. All good? More or less, okay. And
Are we all good, Sarah, Kieran?
yeah.
Yeah.
Along these creases that we've already got, I'm going to bring this this leg down like that. I'll do the same thing on the other side. So these are the creases that we put in the very first stage of the model. Now you can see that we're starting to get this hind legs and tail section coming through. And these sections these next parts are kind of pretty intuitive, you'll see. We now have this kind of triangle here. I'm going to fold corner to corner, but behind the model. So putting a mountain fold in there like that, making that crease nice and sharp. Okay, I show you what I've done. I've just folded that triangle in half. And I'm then going to take the point back in the direction that it was. So it's just, that's the kind of shape that we're left with. Yeah.
Can we see inside a little?
Yeah, so if I just, there's the model flat on the outside. If I just kind of orient this so that you can see the shape of that edge is now like a zigzag. So I folded, that's where I started. I folded that triangle in half back on itself, and then I brought the corner back out here so that it's like a smaller triangle that just pokes out. And I think that's more or less where I want it. Is that clear to everyone? Cool. I keep on holding my thumb up to the wrong camera. You can't see me over there. I need to be like, yeah, cool, nice one. Okay. The almost done with this leg here. The next part is the fold goes along here. There's no real easy way for me to tell you where to reference it, but we're basically just going to pinch all the way along there so that we get an elongated, like a thinner hind part coming out there. And that's the very paw of our cat. And the very last bit that we do is just to fold the tip of that back. I suppose if you want to be fancy, you could do some sort of reverse fold or put it inside, but it's not really necessary. I'm just going to fold it back on itself, and that will actually do. So that's that hind leg almost completed. There is another part to that, but before we do it, we're going to do the last few steps on the other side. So I'll just turn this over. That's where we started. It was this triangle back on itself. I can do it with a guide crease just by doing, like, I can put a guide crease in if I want to, and you can do that. But I find it easy enough to just get those points together. Do like that. And then I'm going to bring this point, how's that for framing, by the way, this point back on itself. Again, so that this back edge is continuous, but it just means that there's a smaller triangle poking out from the larger one, like that. Hopefully we'll end up with these more or less the same length so our cat can stand up all right. And then just going to take this whole back edge and fold it behind, just by pinching along like that, through all those layers. And just finish this foot paw, squaring it off by just folding the tip of that toe. Oops, it's not very neat for some reason. Following the tip of that toe behind like that. Lovely. So are we all there with our hind legs nicely shaped? Awesome. Excellent. So yeah, one of the last folds to do now on these hind legs is to take this corner inside. It's not super well delineated exactly where this needs to be, but I want the fold to emanate from where this meets this meeting point between these two layers. I'm just going to take that and kind of just pinch it inside like that. It's just it's a shaping fold, you know, it doesn't have to be anywhere in particular, but we just make this a bit more lifelike. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, this really springy paper I'm not loving for the full effect, but that is the finished hind legs of our cat. So the only thing left to do is to shape the tail, which I think is actually quite effective. If we're ready to continue, thumbs up. Cool.
Sarah, yeah.
Thumbs to the ceiling. That's awesome. So I'm going to take this. This again, it's one of these bisectors. All of these layers to fold this triangle here in half, right? So all of those layers to meet that edge. And honestly, with this paper, it's not super neat. I just want to do that as neatly as possible. I'm going to pinch along there. So it should be something like that. And then the last thing to do here is to take this top layer and fold it back out. So it's this edge of the layer now folding back out to meet this side. and just press that together as hard as possible, really. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. So, hold on. So, if we've got our two sections ready, how are people doing out there? Tails all good? So, I knew I would do this. I've not got my glue out. What am I? There it is. Right. So, we're gluing. Now, obviously, that's not 100% traditional, but neither is modular origami. This is, it's relatively recent, but there's a huge amount of traditional modular pieces as well. So I just think it's worth doing in this case. I'm going to put a bit of glue along this section on both sides. And then basically, I'll do that by putting that on my finger there. And pretty much just between these shoulders here, I'm going to put that in, make sure that my feet are roughly at the same level, and just squeeze that closed. We should have something that looks a bit like a fairly chubby house cat. That, if we're really lucky, is even going to stand up. Great.
Yes. We all got the cat. Oh, well done.
That looks really nice.
That's really good.
Excellent. That looks like a really good fold. Because it's
Oh, we got a yellow one.
awesome. Pair of kitties. Oh,
Well done,
hold that up again, Sarah.
Sarah.
Nice one.
Nice.
So yeah, again, it's like it's a question of folding a couple of times. Go back and try through again with the instructions and with the experience of the guided fold. And if you're not completely happy with your first fold, that's very normal and natural. And I would recommend having another fold of it. You guys look pretty happy together. And I'm really pleased that came out nicely.
Well done, everyone. Yeah, I think, because of a technical problem, we overran a little bit. So does anyone have any questions? And Tony, do you want to tell us about, do we have homework to do?
Well, not exactly. If you want to, we will be giving out the instructions for the next section. You're welcome to have a crack at folding it. There are some things that aren't going to make a lot of sense, but I can show you what we're going to be doing. These are some very miniature versions of our pig. This is the smallest one that I've done. It's actually not. It's actually quite a cute little piggy. But that's the model that I've settled on for the next one because it uses a lot of the similar techniques that we've done already. And it's got a lot of character to it. And I really like, when thinking about what to do in a course like this, there's tons and tons of things you can do in origami. Some of them are very mathematical. Some of the, I really like the fact that you can get character into a small model with good design. So I wanted to explore some things that did that. And yeah, so we're going to learn to fold this piggy. That's next week. And also, I don't know if I've got any of them handy. Yeah, we'll be exploring something called the crease pattern, which is essentially like, if I take a model like this, if I unfold this now, just unfold the whole thing, what I'm left with, unsurprisingly, is a pattern of creases. Okay. Now, to origami designers, a crease pattern is essentially a shorthand guide to something that they've folded. You can take a crease pattern and look at that, and if you know how to decode it, you could basically fold that model without any other reference of what it is. Or maybe if you have a picture of the finished model and the crease pattern. Now, we're not going to be doing a lot of crease patterns. That would be like another course in itself. But I wanted to do an example of like the first thing that I did with a crease pattern, which was this sumo wrestler by a very famous Japanese designer. We'll have a look at the crease pattern for that and how to decode those. A lot of the times when you get books like this one, which is as you see from the Korea Origami Convention, it will have like some diagrams and things like that in there to follow. But at the back, there'll be essentially like puzzles for the higher levels, where you'll just basically get the crease pattern, and you'll get a picture and you'll get the crease patterns. Crease patterns can get crazy in their complexity. Like that is not something that I'd probably be able to do. That's the crease pattern for this ogre-faced spider. I mean, there's some insanely complicated origami out there, but I think it's really satisfying to know something about a crease pattern and how to read them. So we're going to do a little introduction to that with a relatively simple crease pattern next week. So yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. Where's my cat one? We've got a nice little farmyard developing here. Giant cat terrorizes pigs, along with giant jumpy frog. Okay.
Well done, everyone, today. So I will be sending out the pattern for next week tomorrow.
Yeah.
So as it follow the usual way, you can either download from our Google Drive or get as an attachment. Okay. So in the meantime, if anyone has any question, want to ask Tony before next section, you can always email me. I can pass on your questions.
Yeah, I'm really happy to field any questions that you have. And yeah, hopefully we'll all end up with some nice piggies. Okay, I'm gonna sign off.
All right.
Take
care. Thanks very much for coming, everyone. Hope you enjoyed
See you
it.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.